2016 City of Coolidge Council meeting, regular council meeting to order. And the first order of business, do we have any invocation?
We have no speaker, Mayor,
Okay.
tonight.
Thank you, Norma. We'll move on. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Norma, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Gilbert Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Huddleston.
Here.
Mayor John Thompson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry. Here. Councilmember Gary Lewis.
Present, ma'am.
And Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Under presentations, item number 4, monthly report and business spotlight recognitions by the Coolidge Chamber of Commerce. Discussion only. Welcome, Lynn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My spotlight is not here. I'm surprised. That is Coolidge Examiner. The first publication of the newspaper was on April 14th, 1928, and it was called the Coolidge News. So I know we'll be presenting this again. They are an old-time newspaper, and they've been really great for us as the Chamber and the Artisan Village and giving good news to the community. And easy to work for with me anyway. Moving on to our statistics. The Chamber reinvestments for March are the Coolidge Florence Elks, Crop Production Services, Fitzgibbons Law Offices, TJ Shope, El Dorado Insurance, Shope's IGA, Arizona Water Company, Rotary Club of Coolidge, and Tags Cafe. Our new members for March are Hope International Ministries. We'll be doing a ribbon cutting in June with them, June 24th, I think it is. Our website hits are up 177%. Our walk-ins are up 159%. Our phone calls are up 65%. We have sent out 2 relocation packets in March. One was to Florida and the other one was South Dakota. Top states that visit us were Colorado, Washington, and Minnesota. Top foreign country would be Canada. The Casa Grande Ruins for the month of March, visitation was 13,531. Year-to-date was 36,322. Some of the events coming up are Vocal Master Class, Soprano. On May 11th, May 12th is Kiva Ribbon Cutting. An open house. May 13th is the Casa Grande Ruins Partnership Meeting. On the 14th, Pretty as a Picture Frame, Mosaics, Reversible Bag Sewing, Ceramics 101, and Fast Painting Technique. On the 19th, Florence Copper will have a public hearing. On the 21st, that's a wrap, along with ceramics decorating a plate. And on the 24th, we have the CADC meeting. 28th, it was ceramics again with a seashell bowl. Say that 3 times fast. On the May 30th, we'll be closed at the Chamber for Memorial Day. On June 4th, it's Broken Plates Mosaics, and June 7th, the Historical Society has their monthly meeting. I just want to comment on the car show this weekend was a great turnout. There was over 100, and I know 103 on one count, and people had left and people were coming in. But it was a great event, and it was really nice to see the downtown so full and vibrant. Any questions?
Any questions?
No, sir.
Did an excellent job on the car show. I'm sure it was our first one, so we will be hearing a few things here and there, and we will make adjustments and move forward.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Next item, call of the public. This is the part of the meeting where you have 3 to 5 minutes. A member of the public has 3 to 5 minutes to come up to the podium, announce their name and their address, and address the council. I would tell you that we will not answer back, but you can make a statement if you so desire. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to approach on call of the public? Seeing no one jump up, we will move along to item number 5, approval of minutes. Item number 5, City Council Budget Meeting, April 11th, 2016. Item 6, City Council Regular Meeting, April 11th, 2016. Item 7, City Council Budget Meeting, April 25th, 2016. And item 8, City Council Regular Meeting, April 25th, 2016. I'll ask members of the council if anybody has any comments or corrections on any of these minutes. If not,
Motion to approve 5, 6, 7, 8 is read.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Now we'll move into a public hearing to receive public comments on a portion of land located in sections 27, 28, and 33, Township 5 South, Range 8 East, and sections 4 and 5, Township 6 South, Range 9 East of the Gila and Salt River Basin Meridian, Pinal County, Arizona, comprising of approximately 1,452 acres, more or less, known as the Coolidge Airport Annexation. Mr. Miller, that's probably you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you mentioned, this is a public hearing this evening. The city staff recorded a blank annexation petition to bring the airport, the Coolidge Municipal Airport, into the city limits. We originally filed the blank petition on April the 15th, and basically the state law says that within the last 10 days of the 30-day waiting period from the date the annexation petition is filed, the city is to conduct a public hearing concerning the annexation to address any questions that the public might have regarding the annexation. Just in summary, this annexation has been contemplated for a number of years. The city has tried over a lengthy period of time to work with the Arizona State Land Department to bring the airport property into the city by going across state land. We've been very unsuccessful in those negotiations. The State Land Department, I think at this point is really not entertaining any annexations by cities of their property. They have a whole lot of reasons for that, and there have been probably at least 2 or 3 state land commissioners that have been in and out of their positions since the city initially started to try to annex this property into the city limits. Looking at the map recently with Tim Hansen in my office, we found another way that we could potentially annex this property complying with the Arizona revised statutes that would not require us to get the permission of the State Land Department. And for everybody's benefit this evening, the illustration on the screen here, we have the existing city limits in this diamond crosshatch pattern. You see it runs across the top of the map here and also over here. Prior, we were trying to annex across state land in this area to bring in the airport. Because we can't get the state land to agree to that, what we've done here is we looked at property that connects to the city limits up here on the south side of Section 22, where it's contiguous to the existing section there on Section 22, the south section line. There's 327.17 feet. This represents an area that is where the existing Central Arizona Project Canal is located. The statute says that where you connect to the city limits, you have to be at least 300 feet adjacent to the existing city limits. And you can see that we are over 300 feet. We're 327.17 feet at that connection. And then we're following basically in this pattern here, this light gray area. What we do is we take in the existing Central Arizona Project Canal property to connect up with our existing city airport down here. Every point of this annexation is at least 200 feet in width, which is another requirement of the annexation statute. Probably the narrowest part, is right in here. Well, actually, the narrowest part is right up here at 327. Here's 385 feet down here where you have the canal running through Section 33. So you can see that we make a connection to our existing city limits. We drop down and take in the airport property. When we recorded this blank annexation petition at the Pinal County Recorder's Office, our original blank annexation petition included this property that is hatched here on the south end. One of the things that we realized after recording this is that from this point south to this section line is 2.3 times longer than it is wide. The statute says you cannot annex a territory into the city that's more than twice as long as it is wide. So we had to back off, and for the purposes of tonight's hearing, we're going to exclude this area hatched so that this length right here, from this point back up to where it makes the connection with the city, is 3 miles. And of course, the maximum width, the width here is 1.5 miles. So basically, the annexation length will be twice as long as it is wide, and therefore compliant with the Arizona revised statutes. So we will be removing, when this annexation petition is circulated, we will be removing this southern boundary. It's interesting how these are section lines, so each one of these squares is 1 square mile. So you have 1 mile, 2 mile, and normally in a normal section, your section boundary would end here. But you can see these sections here, section 4 and section 5, are what they call correction section, where they're longer than a mile. They're a mile wide, but they're about 1.5 miles long, which is really unusual in a typical township. So this is a correction boundary. So you can see that based on this exhibit, we will be complying with all the Arizona revised statutes with regard to how we drew up the boundary of this annexation. There are 2 property owners. The one owner is the Central Arizona Project, CAP. There's no taxable value. That is an entity that is not assessed a tax. They're not affected in any way with regard to paying a tax or a levy to any of the taxing jurisdictions. And of course, the city of Coolidge owns the rest of this property. And so it's really just a 2-party annexation. At the end of the 30-day waiting period following the public hearing tonight, we will go ahead and obtain signatures subject to, and then bring the ordinance back to the mayor and council for their consideration of this annexation. Subsequent to the annexation, if the council decides ultimately to move forward with this annexation and approve it, and once it's annexed into the city, which is 30 days after the annexation ordinance takes place, we can then later come in and file a separate blank petition to annex this piece down here, which is what our intentions would be. But that'd be a separate annexation process.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Earlier this year, your City Manager Flatley, yourself, and I were at a meeting with the State Land Commissioner, and she asked me a question: why does the City of Coolidge want to annex that airport? And I'm going to ask you the same thing and see what kind of answer you give.
Okay. No, first of all, that was a very good question she asked. She asked that question because we own the airport. You know, what are the benefits to the city to have this annexed into our jurisdiction? Well, really, probably the best reason that I can give you is that when we have procured a number of very large grants in the past through the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, also through the Arizona Department of Transportation Aeronautical Division. A good example is the taxiway extension. Recently, the lighting project on runway 1735. We have design and engineering and a future project coming up for taxiway Bravo. We're talking about projects, when you add them all together, are millions of dollars. We have our FBO, Charlie Reckers, out there. He will be, in the very near future, obtaining a building permit to build a new hangar that will accommodate C-130s. And all of these construction projects, there's a cost associated with this. So there are construction sales tax revenues that the city can derive from these construction projects. I think the city's construction sales tax is 3%. And so there is a direct benefit in the construction sales tax, as well as just having just being able to say that the Coolidge Airport is in the city of Coolidge. I mean, there's some benefit in saying that it's part of our city and part of our history and should be part of our jurisdiction. It takes away some of the question on who issues permits and who responds to emergencies. We know that we do, and have traditionally responded out here, even though it's not technically in our city limits. But I think it takes away all of that confusion and puts it in the jurisdiction that it belongs, and that would be the city of Coolidge.
That was a good answer, Mr. Miller. But a lot of it boils down to that we'll finally be able to generate some revenue. The revenue that's coming out of our other monies now, the airport will start to pay for itself.
And as time goes on, that's a large piece of property. We may see future hotels out here, restaurants, recreational vehicle park potential. There's a number of developments that will occur out here that we would rather, see the construction sales tax money come in on. Won't see a lot of property tax revenue because we own the property. So you won't really see a benefit there.
And our esteemed legal staff, I'm sure, has reviewed this annexation, and in the event somebody challenges it, we're in pretty good shape.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we can't guarantee that no one will challenge this annexation, but we do like the revision. We think the revision makes the annexation consistent with the state statute that outlines how annexations should proceed.
Thank
That
you,
doesn't
sir.
mean we're not going to get challenged, but that.
Well, but this is better advice than you gave us the time before, where we got challenged that we're going to lose. You're pretty definite on that issue. This time we're probably going to do okay.
I'm usually optimistic. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, you are, sir. Thank you. Okay, and guys like Gilbert and I have been on here for a long time, and finally looks like we're going to get a way to do what we've been trying to do for many, many years.
We have verified this land, as I mentioned, the CAP is not, if you look at the state land maps, this map, this area is not shown as state land, so we feel real comfortable going this route.
Okay, thank you. This public meeting, anybody in the audience have anything to say, or anybody else on the council? Okay, seeing nobody approach. If you're going to speak, you need to come up and state your name and your address, please.
My name is Christopher Fox. I live at 160 North 23rd Street here in Coolidge. I was just curious, when you mentioned the maximum width of 1.5 miles, is that from farthest point east to farthest point west?
That's
Or
correct.
is it the biggest block of land?
It's the widest part of the annexation boundary, which would be this area down here. So the maximum width of this whole annexation area would be from east to west across this part right here, which is 1.5 miles.
So I'm assuming this isn't necessarily to scale, but up by the 27, it's not taking into consideration that that point up there is farther east than the farthest point down where the mass of the land is. I'm only mentioning it
yeah.
on a technicality if they're
Yeah.
saying that point is farther.
I think what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, are you saying that the width should be measured from here over to here?
Exactly.
I think it's probably a little more defensible to say that this would be the maximum width of the annexation.
I would agree. I'm just,
Yeah.
I worked in land development before briefly, so I know that those issues have come up when you're talking about.
If that could be argued legally, it would even be better. I mean, but right now, the length, this maximum width is,
That was all I was
yeah.
wondering.
So it actually, your argument would even be better because it would be a little more than 1.5 miles wide by 3 miles long. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Seeing nobody approach, we'll move out of the public hearing. Move into business regular items. Item number 10, ratification of the Municipal Property Corporation, the MPC officers, for the year 2016-2017. Discussion and action.
Mayor and council, I'll take this one. At the last meeting, we held the annual Municipal Property Corporation meeting, and at that time, we elected officers and directors for that board, and we should have had this item on the regular agenda that basically ratifies that we held the meeting, elected and the officers and directors for, is it 2016, 2017?
Well, I
So,
see Rob's the president. Does he need to take over, or do I just need
no,
to do it on a
no,
regular
council
agenda?
now needs to ratify that that action was taken.
Okay. If there's no discussion,
Rob, did you still want to do that? We talked about it. You okay with that still?
I'm
Okay.
Unless you want to do it.
No.
Well, it's a
We
little
have
late for
concerns
that
of
now.
signing a paper.
So I'm looking for a motion.
Move to ratify.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 11, presentation of the Coolidge Chamber of Commerce on their fiscal year 2016-2017 budget proposal. Lynn?
Well, in your packets, we've given you the budget and our goals and our request. We're not asking for an increase, but we want to stay the same, and we respectfully ask to continue to support the CDC for economic development. And then we do this as a team. Everything we're doing includes you guys as council, my staff and team, I should say. Amy Norwalk, she's the my executive. Oh, the mayor's going to really get me now. At mayor's breakfast, I could not remember anybody's name. It was not a pretty sight, but it was a great meeting. Amy Norwalk, she is my executive assistant. Sherry Ulmer is the director of membership. And we have a great board, and with all of us together, we've made great things happen. It's a team effort. Do you have any questions for me on my...
Gary?
When we decided to step away from Access Arizona, we gave extra money to the chamber or no?
Yes, we did.
Is this reflected in this budget? Because I looked over earlier, I couldn't see it, so I wasn't sure if that was something we were going to continue to do or do on an as we decide basis. I wasn't sure.
Well, Lisa didn't come. It's in
Yeah,
the budget.
That's in the 55?
No. If you look at my proposed budget, I have it in there of the 8,000 because I think you put 8,000 to the CEDC, which is the committee under the chamber, as well as you set aside for the Artisan Village as well.
I was going through it earlier and I couldn't find it, so I just didn't want to lump it into that 55. So for some reason I was like, well, we gave them 55 last year, so that couldn't include it.
No,
what
it
we gave
didn't.
Extra. Okay.
That
Wanted to make
actual
sure.
number didn't
Okay.
because that's a separate thing, and I didn't want to confuse it.
Awesome.
And for everybody's information, that CDEC is based on economic development for
Yes.
Coolidge.
That's correct, and that's why
And
it's
we got pretty much nowhere dealing with, what was it, Access Arizona?
We're getting much better bang for our buck
I
right
think
now.
so.
right. We don't mix that with our general funds. That is strictly used for economic development. Whatever project we would want to work on, it could be marketing, it could be helping with the Artisan Village, or another project deemed from the group.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. Are we gonna, anybody else, you have anything down here? Yeah, you
No, I just think that you guys are doing a fantastic job, and I've been to several events that you guys put on, and I see a lot better Chamber of Commerce up at the Artisan Village than I did downtown, and you guys are just doing a great job. I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
With that said, I move to approve item number 11.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Item 12, consider approval of applying for.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sorry, thank you. See, you know you got to move before we change our mind, right? Consider approval applying for the 2016-2017 OPSG grant funds for the Arizona Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $169,043 to be used for overtime and mileage for Operation Stone Garden Details. Chief Malinsky, I believe that's you. What's wrong with your lights?
We take care of them in the other half of the building,
Techno
sir.
party.
Thank you.
It stops after.
Mayor Thompson, Vice Mayor Henry, and council members. Police staff recommends City Council approval for the Police Department applying for the 2016-2017 Operation Stone Garden grant funds from the Arizona Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $169,043. These funds would be used to pay officers overtime and vehicle mileage reimbursements for Operation Stone Garden details. The Coolidge Police Department has applied for and been awarded similar funds the past several years. This is a fully funded grant, and there are no matching funds required. If awarded, we would return to council asking to execute the contract and spend the funds. The Operation Stone Garden program supports enhanced cooperation and coordination among the Customs and Border Protection, the United States Border Patrol, and local, tribal, territorial, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. The Operation Stone Garden program funds investments in joint efforts to secure the United States borders along routes of ingress from international borders to include travel corridors in states bordering Mexico and Canada. Major activity for local Stone Garden participants consists of the interdiction of human and drug smuggling. And I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I'm going to start down here.
None.
Councilmember Lewis?
Could I possibly go last? Because I have a whole lot. I want to give everybody else a chance to.
Vice Mayor?
Just a comment, I'm glad to see that we're still involved in the operation, and I know the officers have been involved in some pretty good and effective operations with other departments, so I'm glad to see that we're part of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor.
He'll probably ask you.
Okay, well, Chief, the one thing that I see on this, having been involved in indirectly this for quite some time, a little bit here and there, this project here, do I understand it correctly that our officers, our department doesn't pay as much as some other departments?
That is correct.
Especially larger departments. And our officers that participate in this, it's almost like it's not really a side job, but it comes out of a different funding pot, and they get to make extra money. Is that
is
a true
correct.
statement?
That is
And
correct.
so if we didn't have this, these officers may not have an opportunity to do that, so they may be forced to go somewhere and look for another employment.
They would not have the opportunity to do that, so that is a correct possibility.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Councilmember Lewis?
Yes, sir. Apologize, this might take a while, Chief. I do want to start off with, I completely understand the situation that our officers are in. Having worked 12 years with this department and the neighboring department, I completely understand the pay difference between other agencies. I don't really like to compare us to the larger agencies because you really can't. There's other reasons why the people leave the other agencies other than pay. Some of my concerns, see, before I used to vote yes, all in for this grant, anything to help the officers earn extra money. But after some research and figuring out the back end of this grant and how it affects our city 10, 15, 20 years down the road, I have a lot more concerns. And I know Lisa with finance will be able to answer or provide more information than I have as far as how the back end affects us. But I do know with the retirement, because what we're doing is we're taking in this money, which is creating pretty much an overtime account and allowing these officers to work so much overtime. And not all of them do, but there's a certain select group that do. That affects the overtime amount that they make. So in the back end, the city's going to end up paying out more in overtime funds out of our pocket versus the federal government's not going to give us another grant to pay that overtime funds. Right now they're giving us the grant to pay a current salary, but that money doesn't go into helping us pay out that liability issue on the back end. And with the current unfunded liability issues we have, I think it's going to magnify our problem as we move forward. And I've taken into account to some of the scenarios and what people would say to kind of challenge my stand on this. And I'll give you a little bit of, and once I'm talking, I'm going to ask Lisa to say a couple of things because she has more information than I do. I looked at the situation as a whole. One of the scenarios is, well, if we don't have this money, all the officers are going to go elsewhere. Well, before we had the Stone Garden, we weren't bleeding officers every year. We had probably the normal amount of attrition rate that any small agency is going to have. We have that attrition rate because, as a small agency, we don't have the opportunity to move forward, to move up. If you become a patrol officer, chances are, in the Coolidge, you're going to be a patrol officer your entire career here, unless a sergeant retires or promotes up. So then I look at it, well, why would an officer want to stay here if there's no reason to move up? And then we run into the similar situation is when we do have openings, we're hiring people from outside the agency, which is preventing our officers to move up to sergeant, our sergeants to move up to command staff, and when bringing in the outside people, we're inheriting their unfunded liability in their retirement, that they worked at an agency where they maybe made more money, which is the same thing as a Stone Garden. We're getting an increased retirement on the back end, which we're not getting any help to support it up front. So if the biggest issue is, well, we need to have this overtime money to keep people, well, then maybe we need to promote from within for every position and not outside people. Because to me, it just seems kind of odd that we're using free money, which is not free by any means, to justify keeping officers, which we probably may lose 1 or 2 a year, but every agency loses. Phoenix loses people every year, county does, Casa Grande does, and they always hire. And a lot of agencies now are not hiring laterals because of the unfunded liability. They prefer the new people just as we do. And I know firsthand that this agency, our agency, prefers non-laterals because of the unfunded liability or the retirement on the back end. So if our major concern is bringing in this money to keep the officers, I'm kind of lost to why our concern is, why aren't we promoting from within and every possible chance we have to promote officers? Because I know recently with 2 command positions open, there's some upset officers that the probability of moving forward has now been taken away from them. I'm not saying it's a bad decision one way or the other. I know the 2 guys who tried to move up to the command staff. I personally think they're qualified, but that's my personal opinion. I'm not the chief of the department. So, am I overstepping?
Yeah, we shouldn't be
Okay.
talking personnel issues. We can
Okay.
talk about the Stone Garden grant.
Well,
how
it's
the
all
grant
tying into
impacts-
it.
Right, but when you start talking promotions and people
Okay.
putting in for it,
All
you're
right, well, I
talking
won't.
personnel issues, and
All right,
that's
well then scratch that, I
outside
won't talk
scope.
about that. But, you know, it goes along the same thing. So, I don't see taking this fund to keeping people as justified when it's going to hurt us on the back end. I don't know what information you would have to help support the back end of it. I would like to see what our finance director says, how the retirement back end actually affects the city, and I'd hate to have 10, 15, 20 years down the road a council sitting here trying to figure out how to fix that mess like we've been doing on a couple issues, saying we're fixing a mess from a prior council. Why are we going to do that to the future? So I just have, that's my big concern, is doing something very minute now that's going to have a major impact on the back end. And with all the other expenses we're getting ourselves into, I just don't see how we could justify that. And I apologize for putting you on the spot.
That's okay. You're basically asking if paying overtime affects the overtime, the unfunded liability, is that correct?
Yes, you know, we discussed this before.
Right.
The retirement on the end, so taking this money now, which increases what the officers are going to make had it not been there,
Right.
affects
Affects the
retirement
amount
we're
that
going to
the,
pay if the officer retires here, which we need to look at. Chances are that if we're trying to keep them, we want them to retire here.
right,
So I'm not thinking about, well, if they go somewhere else and take that liability with them.
right.
But if they stay here, it dramatically increases what we're going to pay on the back end, correct?
It does.
With no
It
assistance.
It increases the amount, it is part of that unfunded liability. The more an individual makes, the more retirement we pay on that individual. When they retire at what they made for the city of Coolidge, not their standard rate of pay. It's what we actually paid them over the course of the, is it 20 years that they retire at generally? 20, that's right, 25 years. At the end of that 25 years, if that officer was, say, let's just say they were making $60,000 a year, and they made $20,000 a year in overtime, they would be retiring at the $80,000 per year, not at their standard $60,000. So it does affect the unfunded liability. Is that the only question you had for me, or?
Yeah, that sounds like what we discussed earlier. But yeah, that's,
Okay.
so, and am I correct that receiving this, the government or whoever's giving us these grants, the federal government, Department of Homeland Security, they're not giving us any assistance on the back end, correct? That's something we're going to have to eat at the end.
It'll be something that we have to pay, or truly. I mean, it's part of our unfunded liability. There's many things that contributed to the unfunded liability for the city of Coolidge, and it wasn't just the recent years of paying the overtime. It was years back, and Vice Mayor Henry will remember in the 90s, our officers also served as ambulance drivers, EMTs. And what they would do is they would come in and work their 8-hour shift with the police department, and then they would go pull an 8-hour shift as an EMT, and it was all at time and a half. That went into their salary, and I believe that's one of the factors that brought ours up to the $5.2 million that we sit at right now. There's lots of other things, bad handling of the fund itself, the way it was set up initially. I think that the drop program contributes to that, because for 5 years no one's putting into that retirement fund while they're on drop. So there's lots of things that contribute to that unfunded liability, but overtime would be one of those.
And as far as the unfunded, because we currently have the 5.2, which, if I believe from prior conversations, we have a larger unfunded liability than most agencies our size because of the situation that you spoke about?
Well, because of those two situations, again, it might not be just the last 10 years. A lot of it probably came from in the early 90s when that happened, and those people are just now starting to retire, and does affect us. But yes, when you're looking at how much you're going to pay that individual's retirement for the next, if they retire at 25 years, you literally could be paying that retirement for, 30 or more years. They have to be funded for that, and that's where the problem lies.
And the last thing I want to say, then I'll be done. Just so it's clear, the last statement I made came from direct conversations with finance. It wasn't something I pulled out of the air.
Right.
So that's clear.
That's fine. But your assumption is that the state legislature has already taken moves to improve the retirement programs.
Yep.
And so our assumption is that their investments now aren't going to be any better, and the system's not going to make headway bailing itself out.
No,
Okay, but what you're saying now, the gist of it is they're not going to be successful. So we're always going to have to pay the public safety people retirement. Now, what they do with the drop, or they don't do with the drop, or even they keep the drop, but they've made changes in the years that you have to put in, and the years that you can retire, the age you can retire. Mm-hmm. There's been I agree with a lot of Councilmember Lewis's points. He's right, but the mess we're in is because of what happened before a lot of the changes. It's not we can't predict the future, I guess is what I'm saying.
We can't. We can't, but I think and I don't know, Dennis, maybe can we talk about I don't even know if we can, lateraling officers over. Is that a personnel issue, or is that just a...
Yeah, no, I think this is, I think the agenda item is for the Homeland Security Grant, and it's supposed to be used for overtime and mileage for the officers that work Stone Garden. That's the agenda item.
Okay.
If you guys want to talk about the pension sometime, let's agendize and talk about it.
Okay.
But that's the agenda item tonight.
Well, you heard from our attorney, so that's that.
Okay.
So, Gilbert?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say, we can't lose sight of what this is. This exists. This grant is put out by the federal government to help the local agencies that are close to the border secure the border and stop human smuggling and drug operations. That's what it's for, and it's not designed to be an overtime cash bonanza for officers. It was never. That's not the point. It's actually to help secure our borders, and it's not true that we were never. We've been here, John. You remember, we were losing officers left and right. I mean, officers walk up to me and say, "You work at Glendale? There ain't openings?" I mean, I'm a council member, and I'm like, we were losing so many people that we were a training ground. As soon as a year would hit, they'd leave, and that's why we had to make adjustments to the pay to stay competitive, just to the surrounding communities. I mean, I remember that. Anyway, but this is related to the Operation Stone Garden. So I think the mayor already addressed some of this, but I think what we have to focus on is what it is, which is to catch and help with smuggling. And we're in that corridor. I mean, our officers have caught people going through here at night. They've had shootouts, and they do their job quietly and don't put it out in the paper all the time. But they're very effective at what they do. They catch the guys stealing copper and all that as part of that, and also run the whole area down by I-8. I know that. That's a fact. So, what I understand. But anyway, I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of what it is. And I think the mayor covered the other part, which I agree with. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, how many other agencies are involved with this? I mean, it's just not Coolidge. What other agencies are involved?
Many of the agencies that are south of the valley proper, all the way to Mexico. So many of the southern agencies are involved in
So a
Stone
lot more
Garden.
police departments than just us.
Correct. Many.
And I think I'd put my money on trying to save our community from illegal immigrants coming in that are carrying backpacks full of marijuana, heroin, and everything else. I would put my money towards that than worry about the end use of it. I mean, you can't predict the future, but we can take care of what we have in front of us right now.
Yeah, we can't. I agree with what you guys are saying, but we're on the hook for 5.2 million unfunded liabilities for us, and our city is worse off than these other police departments. So I understand that we're in a predicament, a dilemma, but here we go again.
Actually, our unfunded liability is lower than a lot of agencies our size, and one of the reasons is because people don't retire from here. We have several that do every now and then, but many are leaving or have left, and then they take that with them to the agency that they go to.
Right.
So there's other agencies that are 3, 4, 5 times as much as we are and roughly about the same size. Because they're more of a destination point. Take Safford, for example. Theirs, I believe, is over 20 million and roughly the same size.
Unfunded?
Unfunded liability.
Really?
But it's because people live, stay there, and retire there. They're the big boys in that locale.
We really haven't had all that many actually retire from Coolidge. They've gone elsewhere and retired.
Okay.
And I was just,
The departments that keep people all the way through their careers and retires have the largest unfunded liabilities. Those with the more quote-unquote younger officers that are leaving before retirement have less unfunded liability.
and I agree with Councilmember Hudson and Lopez. I want to keep our area safe here, and it starts that way. If we can keep them from coming this way, we're better off. And I don't know if I can say anything about it. And what was it? Lisa, what year was it you were talking about? The 90s. But there was more to it than just what you said, because I worked in that field. So we can bring that up another date. But I don't think that really has anything to do with this.
And I think everybody has a valid point. Now it's time to vote. Is there a motion to do anything?
Mayor, if there's no more discussion, I make a motion to approve agenda item 12 as read.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Councilmember Lewis?
Okay. Number
Mayor and Council, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Item number 13. Consider approval of entering into a first amendment to the professional services agreement between the City of Coolidge and Hanson Engineering and Surveying, LLC, for survey services on the FY 15-16 annual road program ZIP and double chip seals to reduce commercial general liability insurance requirements to $1 million and $2 million, authorizing the mayor to sign a new agreement with the revised insurance limits requirements. There was a period, requirements. So, Susanna?
I'm going to tell you that this was probably my mistake, that I thought that our normal insurance requirements were 1 and 2, not the 2 and 4 that were in the standard agreement that I was given. When I did submit this over to Hanson, they basically said, whoa, we don't have that much, insurance. It will be very difficult for us to get it at this time. So I did check with our attorney, and we also checked with Southwest Risk, our insurance company, and they were fine with the 1 and 2. So that was my mistake, and I guess I'm here asking you to help me with ratifying that change. So,
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Any comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to approve the item as read and ratified.
Is there a
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, report from the mayor, council, and our city manager. We start down here with councilperson Tatiana.
So I know I'm a day late and probably a dollar short, but I wanted to congratulate the Artisan Village with the Willy Wonka show. I thought it was a spectacular show. All the kids that performed in it did great. And the readers that put it together did a really good job practicing with the students and reaching out with the students if they needed more than the one day a week practice. So they did a really good job. And also for the Relay for Life event, I think we had a lot more new families out there this year and a lot more people just from the community out there. So thank you to everybody, and I hope to see even more families out next year.
Yes, sir. April 30th, I attended the USA Powerlifting Queen Creek High School Nationals and Spring Open at the Queen Creek High School. We had one local, my son, who competed in a Florence youth, both of which won first place in their divisions, and we're just waiting for confirmation, but my son set 4 state records, so I'm pretty happy about that. Represented Coolidge pretty well. I know no one's talked about it, but it's been on the public. We're dealing with the loss of Mr. Flatley. I was able, myself and Councilmember Huddleston, and I know almost everybody else did, if not everybody else, was able to go visit him in time, so that was rough. So all the prayers go out to his family, and talking with Victoria, and I want to pass this on. We have a lot of issues going on in the city, a lot of different conflicts, either personality or business conflicts, and she said one thing to remember, doesn't matter what happens, you got to do what's right and what's right for the city, and remember what Bob would do. So I thought about that a lot since she said it, and it makes a lot of sense. And no matter what conflict you had with Bob, he always did what was best for the city, regardless of if it was right in his head or wrong in his head. It was what was best for the city. And he was a fantastic city manager, so we're going to greatly miss him. I'm sure some other people will speak on that as well. And then I also attended the Cruise In on Main Street this past Saturday. That was hosted by a couple car clubs, and the Chamber helped with that. And Nick from Tequila Jacks was one of the main components of that. And I can tell you, I wasn't alive in the era where hot rods and stuff were the big thing, but if I was, I could tell you that's what it would have looked like. Standing on Main Street between Coolidge and Central and seeing 100 cars and 200 plus people was probably the coolest thing I think I've seen in the city since I've been here. And it's something, when I ran for council, I talked a lot about those type of events. And it just shows that this event, 90% of the people there weren't even from Coolidge, which was fantastic. And all of them talked good things about our city, about Nick and his business on Tequila Jacks. He does a fantastic job. We had no issues at the event. We had a few vendors. All of them did really well. And it was great. I know some other people made appearances there. TJ Shope was present. He spoke on behalf of the chamber. And of course, everybody who's running for sheriff was running around at some point. But it was a great event, and I know they're talking about doing another one in October after Coolidge Days. So when that information's set, they'll have this last event was put on, I think, with a month's notice, maybe 2 months. Yeah, they did say it was short notice to them, so they're planning one for October, which if they start planning now, it's going to be a great event. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's it. Being looked at like I'm talking too much. So
My thoughts and prayers go out to the Flatley family. I attended the mayor's breakfast last week, and then today at the Performing Arts Center we had Kathy Weiss, and she is the executive director of the Del Webb Performing Arts Center in Wickenburg. So she came and did a presentation, which was really, really exciting. And it took them a while to get going, just like it's taking our Artisan Village and Performing Arts Center to get going. But I thought she did a great job, and like I said, it was very informative. And I can't think of anything else.
I did go with Gary to see Bob, and there's one thing about going to see someone in hospice that is just a good reminder that life is short, and like Bob, it is true, everything that he did, whether we agreed or not, you could tell that his heart was for Coolidge, And I would like to say that I think as far as serving on a council, I believe everybody here really has a heart for what's best for we don't always agree, but at least we're trying to do the right thing for the city of Coolidge. Also went to the car thing, car expose.
Cruise in on Main.
Cruise in on Main, and yes, took my little ones down there. It was a lot of fun. It was a good event. I tried to get in at Papa Louie's. Is it Papa Lou's or Papa Lou's? Papa Lou's, and get a good hamburger, but the line was too long. So must have been good. Yeah, it sold out. Good day.
Yeah, my thoughts and prayers are going out with the Flatley family, and I think when we dedicated the honor memorial down at the Artisan Village, that was probably the last event that Bob attended, and he was very proud to be there because he worked so hard to get that there. And you could tell by him walking and standing that things were going south on him. But God bless him for what he's done to the city of Coolidge. He was a great man. I attended the Coolidge Economic Development Committee meeting at the end of last month, and also attended the breakfast with the mayor, which was a good event, and then went out to the last fly-in last Saturday. And I tell you, I'm going to miss that $8 all-you-can-eat breakfast.
As long as Gilbert's not cooking.
That's right. Thank you. Mayor, thank you. I also want to share our condolences with Bob Flatley and his family, Victoria, and all their kids. I used to talk to Bob a lot. Like say, John and I have been here a long time on the council, so on economic development, all kinds of things. Bob always had a way to get to a really good place on an answer on how to deal with something, and it was really cool to go through that process with him. So I'll never forget those discussions that we had. Also, his kids posted some really cool pictures on Facebook. You see that when he was in the seminary.
Yeah.
I mean, when he was young, they were just great pictures. I tried to find them and save them, but I don't know where they went. But it was very nice. Yeah. Also, the Coolidge had some great events, this weekend, and this next Friday I'll be attending the Arizona League of Cities Executive Committee, and we are going to talk about the public safety, and I'll get whatever information I can to send it. I know, like for example, Bisbee pays a quarter of its operating fund to deal with the unfunded liabilities. Can you imagine that? A quarter of it, and they're struggling. So we're nowhere near anywhere near that. That's just terrible. And so they're trying to deal with that, and that's some of the things that the legislature is trying to help with, because, and hopefully they've gotten better, but can you imagine having to do that? So anyway, I'll find what I can, and we'll give it to Rick, and Rick can send it out to everybody. If we get some more information, it's based on the facts they've collected over the time, so, just see it. But it certainly is an issue. I'm not taking anything away from that, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be brief. We dearly love and miss our leader, Bob Flatley, and our department head meetings, and our staff, and his family is in our prayers. And I do know that there's an event being planned for the 21st this month from noon until 3, a memorial. I believe Victoria and the family are planning that activity. Is that correct? 21st?
Yeah, it was on Facebook.
On Facebook, that's what I've been told. So I just share that with you based on some conversations that I and others have had with Victoria. That's the plan anyway. And there's a CYC tomorrow evening, the Coolidge Youth Council meeting tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. I think it's their last meeting of the year. Mary, you'll probably say. And so, they're a great group, and Ricky and the mayor, it's just a great organization, and it would be nice if you could come and visit and say thank you to our fine youth. I did spend a little bit of time on Saturday. I didn't go to the car show because I was dead. I was working with a local scout troop, putting in some gabion baskets and out in front of the Department of Motor Vehicles. We still have a little work to do on that Wednesday evening at 6 p.m., but you can thank your local scout troop for going out and providing service to the community in a at the DMV. Makes a world of difference. The old chain link fence with the barbed wire at the top is certainly not missed, and it's a much better image right now with what we have. So that's all I have.
That's why you were out there with the roller tape.
Yeah, I was out there laying it out.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. As for me, I attended the Quilts of Elder ceremony for Oscar Rodriguez at Artisan Village Honor Wall. Well-deserved. That's national recognition. They bring down a quilt for him. Some citizens from Santan and Anthem actually made the quilt and brought it down. I was at the breakfast with the mayor for the chamber. I met with Congresswoman Kirkpatrick down in Eloy regarding Coolidge and thanked her for helping some of our residents in Coolidge that were having some issues. A challenged young person was having a problem getting into Cabot, and we went ahead and with her help, we got the person into Cabot. And they had moved down here from Gilbert specifically and she was going to Coolidge High School, and she couldn't, all of a sudden, she got told she couldn't go. And so, anyway, federal law was, it looked like that maybe they had an issue, so they decided to let her in. So, but we wouldn't have got done without Congresswoman Kirkpatrick's help. And while I went down there, I would tell you that I took her some bread from our bakery here in town, so, hopefully they'll be ordering up down in Washington. But anyway, I attended the fly-in. I also went to the car show Saturday, and it was a good event. It was actually an excellent event. I hadn't seen that many people on Main Street. I can't remember the last time.
You were 12?
Yeah, well, yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw that many people. I do know that we had kind of a minor issue, but I think that will be taken care of, and we will move forward. One of the problems that we're having now is people actually know we're here and they come to our events because Councilmember Lewis is right. There were a lot of people there from Coolidge, but there were a lot more there from somewhere else. And we got to start timing our events a little better so we're hitting and missing on, we're not competing with certain things from other communities. So, and lastly, Gilbert and I have been on here for a long time. Some people would say too long, but I would say that I'd never had another city manager. Bob Flatley was the city manager that I had from the time I've been on this council. And it goes without saying, he was not only my friend, he was somebody that truly did care about this community. And so I thank him for doing the job he did. So
He hired me as a copier. First year here.
there you go. So, and in saying that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn, sir.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.